Hey, everybody, and welcome back. You are seeing me for a second time today, but this time it's for good reason, I promise. I have got Chris Hogan here with us today. Now, you might know Chris from a lot of his different ventures. He works with Ramsey Solutions, and he is a financial expert who is here today to talk about things I know a lot of y'all have been asking about. Things like, how do I save money right now when I've lost my job? How much do I need to save if I don't get my job back anytime soon, or if I am preparing to go on a furlough or things like that? We have a lot of good questions from y'all, but if you have any, please let us know. You can leave them in the comments. I'll be watching and I will ask them to Chris as much as we can. So, Chris, thank you so much for giving us a little bit of your time. I know we talked before we got on air, and this is a time when a lot of people really need some good financial advice.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you. And you're right. We're dealing with unprecedented times right now, and people are dealing with this crunch and definitely needing some guidance. And so I'm excited to be with you to try to help as best I can.
Yes, sir. Before we get into any of these reader questions, let me go ahead and ask you, just by starting out, this is a time when a lot of us are needing to save money. Maybe we can't make any big changes right now, but what are those little ways that we can save money just in our day-to-day lives?
Oh, you're absolutely right. There are small things that you can do that always lead to substantial savings. And it's great to do the big thing and make a big cut and save a big chunk. That's always exciting. But I'm going to tell you, these little things can add up. So, for example, food tends to be a really big issue for people in their budget. So instead of eating out, I'm encouraging people to eat in, but let's have a game plan. Let's eat the food that's in the pantry. Eat the food that's in the refrigerator and the freezer. Some people have a can of lima beans that's moved around with them 10 times. Let's eat those things. And so food is a big savings. Another thing is cut unnecessary subscriptions, right? It could be a gym membership, or it could be a subscription you've forgotten about. And so really taking a look at your bank statement and deleting those unneeded things can really help. Also, with your travel, be really smart and consolidate trips. So if you're going to pick up your dry cleaning, or going to pick up groceries, or going to the post office, instead of having 3 individual trips, let's do that all at once and begin to plan and be very, very intentional. You can also sell some stuff, selling the unneeded things you have in your home, whether it's clothing or other items, electronics or something. People have 2 or 3 older phones hanging around that could be worth a few $100s. So those little things will really add up if we're intentional and we look at it.
You mentioned the phones laying around. I can right now think downstairs in one of those junk drawers, I've got probably 2 iPhones sitting there. It's such a good point. We have to look around our house and say, am I really using that item? And what are your suggestions for selling things like that? Maybe if you don't have an eBay account or things like that, what is the best way to kind of make that money quickly?
Right. Well, you actually have several $100s sitting in that drawer down at your home. So those old phones are worth some money. So you have ways that you could sell that online. There are multiple different outlets. I can remember one lady told me, she goes, Chris, I know nothing about selling anything online. I told her, I said, reach out to your grandson. I guarantee you he can help you. And sure enough, he was able to. So regardless of where you are, there are things that you can do online with Craigslist. There's virtual garage sales and things that you can do where you can sell things to reputable people. And you've got an opportunity, again, to make money. But here's my tip. As you sell that item and the money comes in, don't just plop it over in your checking account, right? Money that's sitting in your checking account without a destination, there's a name for it. It's called spent. So if you're going to use that money for savings, once you deposit it, move that money over from the item you sold into your savings account and be very mindful about it.
That's a good point. Then it's kind of like, it's not like cash sitting in your wallet that somehow always goes faster than everything else. I don't know why that is.
That's exactly right. Well, it's because everyone else has a plan for our money if we don't. So it's really important for us to have a plan and be intentional. Now, that doesn't mean we can't have fun and do some fun stuff. It just means we're following a plan. And that's really, really important.
Now, what do you say to those people who are realizing at this point that we need an emergency fund and everybody needs one? Now, maybe you can't build one at this time, but what do you say for the future for people who are just realizing that they didn't have any money saved and need to start somewhere in case of future tragedies where they need money like right now?
Well, here's the reality. The goal of the emergency fund is protection, right? It's insurance. Its job is to sit there and be there in case you need it. So if you're out there and you've never heard of an emergency fund, or you're just now realizing how serious it is, first of all, I'm glad you're acknowledging that it's important and it's necessary. Now, what we want to do is begin to work a plan to establish one for you. And so this really goes back to going into what I've been calling conserve mode. Conserve mode means we want to be very intentional about every dollar we have going out, being intentional, very much so, and budgeting. A lot of people start to twitch and break out into hives when I say budget. But with budgeting, all I mean is just telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. And so you starting to budget, tightening down that budget will allow you to save up, but also use the stimulus money that's coming in. Whether you're someone that's on unemployment and receiving the extra 600, that extra 600 a week is going to be in place until July 31st as of now. But eventually that money is going to stop. And so it's really important for people to really start to think ahead and be planning, but start to conserve right now.
And we got a couple of comments asking about debts like credit cards. Is that something that still needs to be paid even right now when you might be a little bit tighter on money?
Well, what I've been advising people, and I've been doing media hits all around the country, if your income is stable, then I want you to continue to attack debt and get it out of your life. You get out of debt, you give yourself a raise. But if your hours have been cut or you've been laid off or furloughed, you're going to have to pause attacking debt right now. You may only be able to make the minimum payments because of your income. And that's okay until your income gets stabilized. And so I'm, again, a proponent of wanting people to get out there, find ways to bring in extra income. There are all kinds of companies that are hiring: Dollar General, Amazon, Home Depot, Domino's. So there are a lot of things that you can do. We just have to be proactive and get after it.
That's really good advice. Now, I know that something that you have talked about before is being aware of your finances. And like you said a minute ago, you can't, budgeting is not necessarily something bad. We think about it and some of us get chills like myself, but it's actually, I like what you said, it's telling your money where it should go. And I like what you were talking about with the streaming services or other sort of subscriptions that you might be subscribing to and you've forgotten about and you don't even use anymore. And that is money that is wasted.
It really and truly is. And listen, I want to encourage people out there. Budgeting is a skill you can learn just like riding a bike, right? It's going to take 2 to 3 months. It's going to take some time, but I'm going to tell you something. A lot of people think budgeting gives restrictions, and it doesn't. Budgeting actually gives you permission to enjoy, because that way you understand what you're doing. The money is there. You're feeling, really solidified in your plan and calm. I don't think a lot of people understand how much money can cause nervousness and can take away your joy. And so when you start to get on a plan and start to learn, you start to feel more confident about what you're doing and more secure about your future.
And what do you say to people maybe who still are having a stable income and who are wondering about, is this a smart time to invest right now? We know stocks are up and down and the economy is taking some really severe hits. Is this a good time to invest your hard-earned money?
Well, if you're someone out there and your income is stable and your job is stable, I want you to count yourself as fortunate. We've got close to around 40 million people right now that are out of work or have filed for unemployment. So if your income is stable, I want you to continue to be very intentional with your money. And we teach a process here. That is, we want you to get out of debt. That means attack all debt except for your house. But once you do that, I want you to build up a fully funded emergency fund of 3 to 6 months of expenses. Once you have that in place, I want you to invest 15% of your household income. Now, I am not a proponent of single stocks. They're too volatile. It moves up and down and it can give you a heartburn and a headache. So I tell people you want to look at growth stock mutual funds inside of your 401k, your Roth IRAs. That's the better plan overall.
And I'm glad that you brought up 401ks. Is this a time, I know a lot of people might be feeling that thought of, oh gosh, do I need to pull out of my 401k right now? Do I need to pull out and use some of that money? And I know that a lot of times advice is against that. What are your feelings about having to withdraw from your 401k early?
I don't want people to touch it. I know the CARES Act made it easier by removing the 10% penalty, but it didn't remove the tax obligation. You pull money out of that, Uncle Sam wants his fair share. And so I'm advising people, do whatever you can right now to avoid touching that 401k. You put that money in there for your future. You put that money in there to have options later in life, to do things for yourself or your family or the people you love the most. Let's not steal from your future to clean up your present. I tell people the only time I would advise anyone to touch a 401k is to prevent a foreclosure or to prevent a bankruptcy. Other than that, I'd want you to leave it alone. You're going to lose a lot in penalties and fees, and you've got to pay taxes on that money because the money went in pre-tax. There are other ways that you can help yourself, better ways without sacrificing your future.
And I know that I got somebody giving me a comment about how, well, I can't think about savings because I live paycheck to paycheck. I know that this is maybe not a coronavirus related problem, but what do you say to those people who are living paycheck to paycheck outside of the pandemic? And how do you break that cycle?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you this. The paycheck to paycheck thing is very real. According to Wall Street Journal, you have almost close to 80% of people, 80% live in paycheck to paycheck. And so when you think about that and you start to think of 10 of your friends or 10 of your family members, that's where that starts to become not okay. And so that's a real situation for people that are out there. Unfortunately, also, studies have shown people are spending close to around $18,500 a year on non-essentials. I mean, that's almost 20 grand a year. And so what it really points to is that we've got to begin to have a plan for our money. That means going back and having awareness. It's impossible to manage anything you're not aware of, and it's impossible to control anything you can't manage. So it's really important for us to look and understand how much money is coming in, what does it take for us to live on, and start to put a plan in place. Those people that are living paycheck to paycheck, that struggle is real. But I'm going to tell you this, we've helped over 6 million families around the country. When they got sick and tired of being sick and tired, as I call it, and they knew they wanted better. When they got plugged into this plan, they started to not only get more control, they didn't make more money. They started to get more control with the money that they had. So it just goes to show it's about having a plan and following a plan that actually works.
Got a great question from Lisa. She says, what do you think about making a career change right now, like leaving security for maybe insecurity, but a better job situation?
Well, I think this is a great opportunity. I think people are rethinking and awakening to where they work, how they work, and how long they plan to work. And I think there are options that are available out there. My friend Ken Coleman has a show that helps people with their careers and job changes. And so, this is a great opportunity. I think as we take a look at our economy and our market and really understand what is coming and what's changing, I think we're going to see a lot of people really pivoting and starting to pursue something that they're passionate about.
And then we have a whole class of people graduating both from high school and from college, going into a very uncertain job market, into a very uncertain field. And I know that I've seen and heard from a lot of those people, especially graduating from college, that are saying, look, a lot of the jobs that I was applying for prior to graduation are just not there anymore. So what kind of advice do you have for people who are new to the workforce, who don't have experience, not for lack of trying, but for pursuing their education? And how do they get into a field that is probably not super apt to giving out money and giving out jobs at the moment?
Well, these seniors that are graduating and starting off life are definitely starting off with a tough situation. No one else, none of us have dealt with a scenario like this, and it's tough. But I want these seniors to realize a few things. You've spent 16 plus years in school pursuing higher education, and now's an opportunity for you to start. And it's about really having grit. I had an opportunity to do a virtual commencement address to a groups of seniors that were graduating, and I wanted to congratulate them on being focused and really pushing forward. But I wanted them to understand that it's going to be important for them to seek their opportunities. Opportunity may come, but it doesn't sit and wait. So we've got to be proactive. And I think this is a great opportunity for them to learn a lot about themselves, but also to really get that drive of what they want to pursue. What you might do beginning coming out of college is not what you're going to do the rest of your career. Odds are people change 5 to 7 times. And so what you want to do is find something you're interested in and pursue it. So I would tell them to get your resume updated, get it polished, reach out to not only family and friends, but also coworkers or your parents' coworkers. Let people know that you're looking for a job, that you're looking to get into a career. And again, it may not be what you thought it was going to be yet, but just be patient and understand that first job is giving you necessary experience as well as life skills that you're going to be able to use as you progress in your career.
Is that the same advice that you have for people who have been laid off from their jobs?
Absolutely. Yeah. For the people that have been laid off, you've got real world work experience. You've got peers, you've got coworkers, you have friends of friends. Get your resume out. This is not a time to let your ego get in the way where I don't want people to know I've been laid off. No, this is a time to let people know that you're looking. Why? Because you're trying to take care of yourself and your family. So put your pride aside, reach out, let your connections and the relationships that you've built over the years, let them try to help you. And I think that's the beautiful thing about community. That's why we have friends and connections. And so reach out, let people know. It's amazing. I've learned firsthand that more can happen from who you know than what you know.
Very true. Very true. And, we talk about pride and about ego, which is a real thing and a real problem. And I have heard of that happening as well with people who are having to file unemployment, whether that's from being laid off or for being put on a furlough. And there are people out there who are too prideful to apply for unemployment, or they say, I don't need that, or I shouldn't do that, even though they might really need that money. So what do you say to those people who are having just struggles mentally about applying for unemployment?
Yeah, I think, it varies. If you're dealing with someone that's single and has that strong belief, and they've got some money tucked away and can take care of themselves, that's fine. If you're someone that has children or small children or someone depending on you to take care of them, you've got to do what's in the best interest of the family. And so it's all a matter of just being aware. A lot of people forget that we pay into unemployment and Social Security, and these things are taken out of our check for years and years and years. And so there's nothing wrong with asking for help. What I think is not necessarily helpful is to remain helpless. And so what we have to do is continue to look for ways to be able to help ourselves. Again, my concern is with the end of this extra $600 a week coming to an end at the end of July, that a lot of people are going to be in for a rude wake-up call. So I appreciate you helping me kind of spread the message and help people to know that, hey, we got to be proactive beginning right now.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. I got a great question from Denise, and she says, do you have any advice for senior citizens who would like to retire and in this era, I guess?
Well, anyone looking to retire right now, this is a tough time. And it depends on your net worth and how much you have put away. But it might be really worth exploring and revamping expectations of what it was you were planning to do or the timing. I've talked to a few people on my show, the Chris Hogan show, where people are calling in and they're wanting to know, hey, I was planning to retire this year, but should I put it off another year or two? And so it varies based on investable assets and what you have and your financial footing. But it's really more of a matter of what are you going to? I tell people I want to have options when I retire. I'm not going home just to sit on the front porch or just play golf. I want to go to something. And so it's really important to have connection and to have meaning. So to that question, I would say you could do it right now. You just need to be mindful of the timing and what it is you're going to do. What's your plan overall? And I think that helps people to feel better. And there's nothing wrong with putting it off for a year because you're going to get to retire. You've already done the hard work.
You're on the finish line now, it sounds like, Denise.
Right.
Now, Meg makes a good point talking about money on higher education and spending money on that versus the trades and trade schools that, as I mentioned, a lot of people are graduating high school in the class of 2020 that may not be able to afford college before the pandemic or now after the pandemic or during the pandemic, I should say. So what do you say about those who are considering a trade school? And is that a good recession-proof type job?
Well, Meg's absolutely right. Listen to me. Higher education, the goal is to get an education so you can get out and be a productive person in the workforce. But trade schools are an option. Some people aren't cut out for college. Some people know exactly what they want to do, and they don't want to be chained to a desk. They want to be up as a welder or as a plumber or an electrician. And so if people have that desire, trade schools are a viable option. I've got several friends that work in the trades, and they make an excellent career. They've got six-figure incomes, and they're doing well for themselves. So I think, it's important for young people to understand their options, and let's stop taking this cookie cutter approach, right? That one size fits all. That's just not true. But I do think it's important for people, regardless of the direction you go, to get information, learn about it, understand what it's going to take and how long it's going to take for you to start to be able to get it done and start to get out there in the world.
Absolutely. I know even just right now, if my house collapses, it's because I have somebody putting in new washer and dryer downstairs. And that is exactly, it's a trade. You've got to, even though it's a pandemic, things still break and you still got to get appliances, unfortunately.
You're absolutely right. Life goes on, right? And so it's important. So I'm glad you brought that up. There's some young people that I've been talking to that have asked about trades and, why it's not talked about more as an option. My friend Anthony ONeill, one of the Ramsey personalities here, is really digging into this space and helping millennials understand their options, especially about how they can go to school debt free. And so it's really important to have options and knowledge about scholarships and trade schools and gaining information. It's really helpful.
Where can people find Mr. ONeill's advice about those trade schools and about debt-free college?
Yeah, they can find him, at our website. He can go to ONeill.com. That's Anthony ONeill, ONEAL.com. And he has information. He's very active on YouTube as well. And a lot of good information.
That is good information, especially for, like we said, a lot of the kids in the class of 2020, high school or college, and plans change. As you said, you can't expect to go into your dream job ever, and especially right now during a pandemic.
No, you're absolutely right. And I'm so glad you bring that up. Too often times, I think we all can get impatient. We want things to happen quick. And I would remind these young people, as you start your career, it's a build toward things, regardless of where you're working your first job, whether it's as a delivery person or as in the mailroom, you're learning valuable skills. More importantly, you're also making business connections. So you want to be very smart about the relationships you build there, how you treat people, and really be smart, because you never know who you may need later in life.
That is extremely true. Very wise words, Mr. Hogan. Can you tell us where to find you and where to get your advice?
Sure, absolutely. Well, you can find all things related to me at ChrisHogan360.com. That's ChrisHogan360.com. I've got articles and blogs. There's information on there about my show, The Chris Hogan Show, and both my books. The first book is Retire Inspired, America's Wake-Up Call on Retirement, and then Everyday Millionaires, How Ordinary People Built Extraordinary Wealth, and How You Can Too.
And I hear somebody in the comments here talking about your podcast. Do you have a podcast as well?
I do. That's the Chris Hogan Show, and it's caller driven. I take questions. We have a lot of fun segments on there. And again, it's just trying to connect with people, helping people walk through this money stuff. Right now things are tough, but we're tough. We're resilient, and we're going to get through this. We've been through tough times before. We're going to get through this, but the best way to do it is to do it together and with the right information and the right spirit.
Yes, sir. Great advice to end on. Thank you so much, Mr. Hogan. We appreciate you taking your time to share some of your tips with us. And everybody, you know where to find him. I'll leave you the links to everything and all that information in the comments here. So thank you so much, Chris. I appreciate it. And we hope that everybody has a safe weekend, and we will see you next week.